watching them play now, everything just feels like it's like random.
Why are you doing inflatable random?
The Warriors offense is the wacky inflatable flailing tube, man. Like that's what it feels like. It doesn't feel organized. It doesn't feel like there's any cohesion. Like Steph and Clay are just shooting threes to be shooting threes. Jordan Poole plays like he's on cocaine.
You are now listening to The Dime with Josh Rodriguez, your weekly go-to podcast for all things NBA. Subscribe on iTunes or listen every week on thedimepodcast.com. And now, your host, Josh Rodriguez.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to The Dime. The Warriors' road woes continue. You like that? I said that. Tongue twister, baby.
Road
Are
woes.
the Celtics fugazi? And what is going on with Ja Morant? Kwab and I break down the latest headlines in the NBA. But first, if you want to follow The Dime, you can on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, on YouTube at The Dime NBA. I'm Josh Rodriguez at Josh_Rodriguez_. Kwab is at Kwab AKS. As you can see, if you are a loyal listener of the show, it is now The Dime with Josh and Kwab, no longer The Dime with Josh Rodriguez. Clap it for Kwab. Kwab's name is on the logo. It's on the fucking logo.
He put me on the logo. I told him not to, but he still put me on the logo.
I still did it.
He still did it.
That's right.
That's right. That's a good teammate. That's a good teammate right there.
If you're listening on Apple and Spotify, give it 5 stars. Leave a comment saying how much you love the show. And also, you can watch the video version of the show on the Balls Life Podcast Network. Just go to youtube.com, type in Balls Life Podcast Network. The Dime will show up, and you can watch the show there along with other shows that is brought to you by the Balls Life Podcast Network. Kwab, what's good? How you doing, man?
I'm good, man. How's everything with you?
I think it's okay. Knicks lost to the Hornets today. So it's interesting because after every Knick loss, there's like a sense of like dread or a sense of like, I'm going to jump off the roof or like, oh man, this team sucks. But this is the first time since probably I was 12. And I did have this instinct when I was 12. If the Knicks lost a game, I'd be like, it's not a big deal. Like this is the first time the Knicks lost. It's like, all right, they won 9 in a row. Like it's like, I always say this to people where, you know, you could lose to the Pistons or whatnot, or like these are professional athletes. Like they will fucking roast you. They will roast you if you don't guard them. They will roast you if you don't put in the effort. I think Knicks were just tired, man. Like there's no shame in losing a professional basketball game. It is what it is.
I think
so.
It was a trap game. They fell for the trap. I think they were.
Yeah.
You guys were on such a high, and then it's like, oh, we got the Hornets. We're just gonna get past them, and then it happens.
How are your Nets? How are you? We both have something in common. The Knicks and Nets beat the Celtics last week.
Yeah, we got Nets won 3 in a row. We're slowly moving up. Slowly. Moving after losing games by like 40 and 50.
Listen, your whole roster is new, so it's not like, you know, you have any type of chemistry. You got to get to know each other. You got to get like roles down and everything. So it's perfectly acceptable. I think
we finally signed a backup center, but to a 10-day.
Nerlens Noel?
Yeah, we finally, because we're like before when the season started, we're like, we need a backup center. I like Daron Sharp, but he's young and he messes up a lot. So it's like, we might need to bring in a veteran. It's like, bring in a veteran center. It only took how many 65 games or 63 games. They're like, okay, yeah, maybe we should bring in a center. So yeah, fine. So we'll see how that goes moving forward.
All right, we'll see how that goes. Well, speaking of the Celtics, let's get right into it, Kwab. No crazy segments today. No NBA Twitter, no pole dancing. This is going to be just a straightforward podcast, kind of just touching base with the audience. I want to talk about the Celtics. The Celtics right now are sitting as the 2 seed. They have been pretty much a consensus best team all year. I think, some people might argue the Bucks. Some people might argue the Nuggets, depending on who you're a fan of. Right now, they're the 2 seed in the East. They are currently 5-5 in their last 10 games. They're on a 3-game losing streak. Are the Celtics fugazi, or are they just going through a stretch that all teams go through where they're just not playing up to par?
I think they're going through a stretch. I don't want to say they're fugazi just because they've been so dominant to start off the season, and maybe they're just leveling down right now. The game against the Nets, though, was embarrassing for them. And that's the word I can use. It was just embarrassing. I know that Robert Williams got injured, so he I think around the second quarter or so. And I don't know if Malcolm Brogdon played that game either, but they were up 26, I think.
Yeah.
And the Nets came back and blew them out. Or not blew them out, won the game, but it was
They won by 10. They won by double digits.
It's embarrassing. That was embarrassing. That was embarrassing. And then to follow that up with 2 overtime against the Knicks and then an overtime against the Cavs.
2 overtimes against the Knicks without Jalen Brunson, by the way.
Without Jalen Brunson, which was...
But to give the Celtics credit, they had no Jason Tatum, they had no Robert Williams, and they were missing someone else too. I'm forgetting. I think Brogdon was out also against the Cavs. So
yeah,
the Cavs to me should have won that game by double digits. So I don't want to harp on the Celtics losing that game too much, even though they were in position to win the game if Grant Williams just hit a free throw, like he said he would.
Like he said, I'm gonna hit both. He lied. But the last episode, you said I'm not afraid of the Celtics when you came as an Knicks fan. You said I'm not, and I was like, I'm not sure why, because it's still the Celtics. And then this happens. Then they have this week, and I'm like, Josh was onto something, maybe. Like, you can't put our finger on it. Like, what's wrong with the Celtics right now?
Yeah.
We don't know if is it because they shoot too many threes, but they want to shoot so many threes. But it's just their style of play sometimes is confusing for when they have two of the top players in the league.
Yeah, it is really confusing. Right now, they're currently 4th in offensive rating, so I can sit here and say, "Oh, they shoot too many threes." But when you're 4th in offensive rating, how much can I really critique you? Kwab and I were having a conversation beforehand because I was trying to figure out what I would say here, why I'm feeling the way I'm feeling. And I think it just comes down to the shots that they take, where it's like, if you looked at Jason Tatum's shot chart against the New York Knicks, and a couple of podcasts and a couple of shows covered this, so this is not a unique thought. He was taking shots from the top of the key for 3, or they were just at the paint, layups, which is basically showing you that it's analytical, right? I don't know if he's doing it consciously. I think he is doing it consciously because he's a professional basketball player and there's game plans going into each game where I'm either going to take a 3 or I'm going to get as close to the rim, the layups 3 analytic type mindset. And for me personally, you're starting to see, I think analytics are losing out a little bit in the sense where it's starting to be proven that mid-range is still effective. Mid-range is still a very relevant part of the game. And mid-range, if you pay attention to certain analytics, go with analytics. You just got to take the right mid-range shots. It can't just be a fadeaway on 2 or 3 people. They got to be, get to your spot type of mid-range games. And Tatum has that. Jaylen Brown has that. Malcolm Brogdon has that. They have that in their arsenal, but they don't really seem to use it that much. And for me, if you're going against the Milwaukee Bucks in the playoffs, maybe even the Sixers who have rim protectors and like Embiid and Giannis, and I can't believe I'm going to say this, Brook Lopez. I know that's like going to give you
no. Brook is probably going to win Defensive Player of the Year. Like,
yeah,
he's been playing amazing on defense. Which again, if you
but you get my point, right? So
yeah,
now you got to figure out a different way to score the basketball. It can't just be at the rim or threes. You got to, have the mid-range. Jason Tatum is one of the most creative one-on-one players in the league, but like if you're not using mid-range, like you're limiting yourself. And I watched the Celtics play and they're 4th in offensive rating. And I'm like, well, how do I feel this way if this whole year they've been killing teams, but I know where everything is coming from. There's no like surprise in their offense. There's no movement in the sense where it's like, damn, if we do this, they're going to get us with this. It's like, all right, they're going to drive and kick, or they're going to take a contested 3 or layup. There's like no variety in the offense. And for me, it just feels, I'm not saying it is, it just feels like they're not as good as everyone's making them out to be.
Also, defensively, I know personally when I was watching them play against the Nets, they were struggling. When Robert Williams wasn't on the floor, they were just struggling. They were trying to play Mike Muscala and Luke Cornett, and the Nets basically were like, "Okay, bring him over here. I'm gonna go with that." Like they just, which was up, and like I'm joking when I say that, but then it was at the press conference after the game, Spencer Dinwiddie was like, "Oh yeah, we just went elephant hunting. We just find an elephant and attack." And I'm like, "Oh wow, you just okay." That was the game plan. That was the game plan. Find somebody and go at them. And if they collapse, you kick out to a shooter.
Right.
I still think the Celtics are, with the Bucks, are a top tier team in the East.
They are. And they can win the championship. I don't want to, make it seem like I don't think they're going to win the championship or contenders. I'm with you on that. I just want to clarify. Go ahead.
It's a weird stretch. Not even a weird stretch. To lose games like that is a weird stretch. And to lose to the Nets that way, that looks bad. There were people who have been talking about the coaching, with Joe Mazzulla. He doesn't call timeouts because he wants his team to figure it out. Which is like against the Nets, there were a couple of times he should have called a timeout. Against the Knicks, there were definitely a couple of times he should have called timeouts. But sometimes you just run into the wrong teams. The Knicks are hot. Well, apart from them even losing tonight against the Hornets, they're just playing really well. There was a point in the game where Julius Randle took a step back three in the baseline corner over two people to beat the buzzer. And as he's taking the shot, I'm like, that's a terrible shot. Nothing but net. He looks at his teammate. He's like, yeah, I'm like that. As he's walking away, I'm like, okay, I guess
every one of those shots Julius has taken this year, I'm like, what the fuck? Okay,
yeah, right. It's like, okay,
all right, Julius, all right.
The previous one, like against the Miami Heat, when he fumbled the ball and he hit that I was just like, yo, I'm like, oh man, that's bad. Splash.
No. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
That's what people used to say about John Starks and like J.R. Smith when he used to play on the Knicks. God. That's what it reminds me of.
Just throwing it up. Like sometimes you run into hot teams, and then going back to that, I don't think the Celtics are fugazi. I think maybe it's just a tough stretch. Maybe they'll figure it out, but they have some things they got to clean up if they want to be a championship team. Because to them, it's not about like making the finals for them anymore. They want to win a chip. So there's a couple of things they have to clean up. So defensively, there's things they have to clean up. Stupid turnovers, they got to clean that up too. Jaylen Brown sometimes has some of the weirdest turnovers at certain times where like he travels just shuffles his feet like ridiculously, and he just looks
loses the ball off the dribble or something.
Yeah. And if you remember last finals, there was a couple of times there was a bunch of times against the Warriors that happened. And even Draymond was like, oh, if you force him left, he's going to mess up. Talking about Jaylen Brown and even Tatum. So there's stuff they have to clean up. So if that's their goal is to win a chip, they got to clean up the little things and I guess figure out when it comes to offense, if you're going to diversify the offense more, or they're just going to, like you said, but it's what you say is fourth in net rating.
Yeah, they're fourth offensive rating. The assist percentage, they're fifth. Like they move the basketball. Like I can give you all these numbers, and it's like by the numbers, they're a fantastic offensive team. And I'm not saying they're not. Yeah. But I think when you get into the playoffs and when things become slower and there's more of a hot half-court defense, pressuring up on you, got to find different ways to score the basketball. And they've really only found two ways, where it's driving kick for three or Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown getting to the rack. I think, they need Jason Tatum's mid-range game. Jaylen Brown has mid-range game, so has Malcolm Brogdon. I think they have the tools to do it. They just aren't doing it. So to me, it's like you gotta know that you have to implement that in the playoffs rather than doing what you're doing. So I'm not sure if that's going to continue in the playoffs. That's my fear for them. I also want to say this too, like this year is a very interesting year in the sense where there's no Jordan's Bulls, there's no LeBron's Heat, there's no Kobe and Shaq Lakers, there's no Duncan Spurs, there's no, honestly, the Warriors too aren't the dynasty Warriors that we've seen in the past. And I think we're so used to like our contenders being these mythical, godly like teams, whereas in the past, that's what it was. And now there really isn't one of those. So you have these teams like the Celtics and the Bucks and the Sixers and the Nuggets who are incredibly flawed and who aren't these like mythical teams that you can see getting beat in the playoffs in any year. But this year, they're just top tier. They're the cream of the crop. And it just feels off. It feels different. And I feel like when you're a number one seed or a or a number two seed, people put you on this pedestal that I don't think any of these teams deserve to be on, if I'm being completely honest with you. I feel like all these teams are beatable. And I think that's what I'm seeing and that's what I'm feeling. This has been the consensus best team all year. And typically the consensus best team all year is a runaway to get to the finals and typically win the championship. That's not the case here.
Going back to your point, so you think a team like the Bucks is beatable?
Yeah.
In a 7-game series?
I think everyone's beatable. I mean, okay. I would if the playoffs were to start today, I'm taking the Bucks to win the championship. But yes, I think the Bucks are beatable. I think the Celtics are beatable. I think the Warriors are beatable. I think the Nuggets are beatable. And not just like, hey, this team has a puncher's chance, in a way where it's like, yeah, they wouldn't scare me if I felt like I was equally matched. I'd be like, all right, we could do this. I don't think you had that in the years past. I don't think you really had that with Duncan Spurs or George Bulls or the Heat.
Wait, hold on. You had
Well,
that
the
with the Duncan
dynasty,
Spurs.
well, the
Okay, then
dynasty war,
the,
but
the Nets
but they
almost
were
beat the Duncan Spurs. Okay, the Nets almost the
the
Nets almost beat the Duncan Spurs. Don't bring that up. The New Jersey Nets almost beat the
bro.
Duncan Spurs.
Listen, the Jersey Nets won game 1 in San Antonio, and for like 3 seconds, I was like,
3. I
like,
was you
come
should
on,
you should have seen me running around. I thought it was. I was like, yo, it's a wrap. We got this. And then next
nah.
game, Steve Kerr comes off the bench and hits a 3, and everything changes. Just 1 3, and everything changed. It was like it was a wrap after that. But that's a
But you
whole
get
other
what I'm
story.
saying.
No,
You get what
I
I'm
completely
saying.
I get it. I understand.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
Speaking of Steve Kerr, the head coach of the Golden State Warriors, for whatever reason, can't win a game on the road. They lose to the Thunder tonight. They lost to the Lakers in Steph Curry's return. They played well without Steph when he was gone. You would think that when he came back, they would continue playing well, even though it's on the road. This team has clinched all their championships on the road, so it's not like they've had problems on the road before. They've been a good road team before. They've won 73 games one season, which means you got to win on the road. Kwab, what is going on with this team, if anything? Can you pinpoint it?
One little thing is not, I guess, not having Andrew Wiggins, who's been out with like a personal family matter. So he's usually been like one of their defensive anchors
Yeah.
on the wings. So not having him factors into it. But apart from that, I don't know, man. I have no idea.
This makes absolutely no sense.
I have
This
no
is the
idea.
most confusing thing of the season to me.
I have no idea. And it's I've seen them try different things, which some stuff makes no sense to me. From a personal standpoint, when the Warriors played the Nets, right? They decided not to start Kevon Looney,
Okay.
and they went with their small lineup. Anytime Kevon Looney checked in, he was killing the Nets because obviously, again, my original point, we don't have a backup center, and if you have legit size, you can beat that team. But then they went away from it. And I'm like, why are you going away from something that's clearly working? I don't know if it's because they're just used to playing a certain way, and if it's not working, they're like, oh, we're still the Warriors, we're gonna figure it out. I know there were fans that were saying that they needed to run more pick and roll and ball screens because that's where a player like Jordan Poole is more effective, coming off screens and just fine. But at the same time, I'm like, it's so weird. They just look like a different team on the road. I don't know if it's because at home they get the energy from the fans. They just look like a completely different team on the road.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's like you can talk about running pick and roll for Jordan Poole you want, or strategy all you want.
Yeah.
Like, what the hell? Like, it's not a strategy thing. Like, this
I
is
said, what the hell?
I mean, if you were this good at home and this bad at the road, to me, that's mental, right? That's something psychological, especially with a basketball team that has had as much success as the Warriors. It doesn't make sense to me. And I can't pinpoint it either. It's not like they get nervous. My whole thing with the Warriors the past 2 years, even last year when they won the championship, when they were their best, the dynasty, it just felt like everything, even like their split action, was very cohesive and tight. And it just, the ball was moving and it just felt very free flowing, but it felt organized. Watching them play now, everything just feels like it's like random.
Why are you doing an inflatable random?
The Warriors' offense is the wacky, inflatable, flailing tube man. Like it's that's what it feels like. It doesn't feel organized. It doesn't feel like there's any cohesion. Like Steph and Clay are just shooting threes to be shooting threes. Jordan Poole plays like he's on cocaine. I've been saying that all year.
All year.
And I don't know if that necessarily works at home because the crowd's behind you. You kind of get, that the oohs and the ahs, and it makes you play better. I don't know. But it just, for me, if as a whole, it feels like the split action, with Draymond too. Draymond's no longer a threat to shoot the basketball, so it kind of changes things up a little bit. Earlier in their dynasty run, like Draymond shot the three like decently. He wasn't a great 3-point shooter, but he was shooting 35%, and he was a threat to actually hit jump shots. So it's just, there's something off with them. And I don't know if that translates to, maybe at home you get away with it because the crowd's behind you, and on the road, you're not familiar with the arena. Maybe the shots that you're taking aren't falling for that reason. I don't know what it is. That's the only thing I could come up with. But to me, it's baffling. It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense at all.
And I feel like for a team that also wants and needs to be in the playoffs, they don't want to be in the play-in. They want to be in the playoffs. They're not playing with any desperation.
Right.
Some of these other teams are playing with more desperation. Like the Lakers are playing with desperation because they want to move up. The Thunder are playing with desperation because some reason they don't want to tank anymore. I don't know why.
Presty, what are you doing, Presty?
Press what you do. There needs to be a sense of like we are the Warriors. Like
Yeah.
they have the belief that if they are in the playoffs, they can beat any team in a 7-game series.
Right.
But you have to be in the playoffs for that to happen, and they can't keep losing all these winnable games on the road. And a lot of the games they have lost on the road have been very, very winnable. I think they have a huge home stretch coming up. I could be wrong. I would have to check to make sure. But I believe they have a huge, which hopefully should help them, and also them getting more healthy should help them. That's been something that has plagued them the whole season. I feel like players been in and out with health reasons. Like even that they were playing well without Steph.
They have Memphis on the road on Thursday, and they have 2 games at home, followed by a 5-game road trip.
Jeez.
And their 2 games at home are against Milwaukee and Phoenix. That's fun.
That's tough.
They've been playing better though. Like they have been playing better. It's not like they haven't been playing better.
Dude, that's tough. Those are 2 tough games to have at home.
Yeah.
Those are 2 tough games to have at home. Especially you see how Phoenix is like they're still working the kinks out, but they're slowly gelling. Like watching them against. They haven't lost, huh?
They're working the kinks out and they're winning.
But they had like slight struggles, especially like defensively. Not defensively, like offensively, they had a little bit little struggles. Like when the Suns played the Mavs, you could tell the Suns the Mavs were basically funneling everything to the fifth player. So it was like, hey, Josh Okogie, you're gonna be the one to beat us. Like, and you got to shoot a bunch of threes.
The shots weren't hitting, but in the second half they started hitting those shots.
They started in the mix, and at the same time, it was like, yeah, we still have Booker, we still have Durant at the end of the day. But yeah, those are two tough games for the Warriors to have. Jeez, I didn't.
Yeah. Are you worried about them? Like I know we asked this question a lot, but is this something where their winning streak without Steph kind of put your mind at ease, or are you still kind of up in the air about them?
I was I go back and forth with them. It's really confusing because I have we've talked about this. I have the belief if they make the playoffs, they're going to be hard to beat. Then I watch them lose a couple of games. Then I'm like, okay, what is going on? Then I'll watch a game where they'll be down like 20 in the first quarter, and by the third quarter they're up by 15 because they just going like the third quarter avalanche. Yeah.
They're at home.
They're at home. They're at home. But at the same time, I'm like, when I'm watching, I'm like, yo, what's happening? But then they go on a insane run. It's like, okay, that's the Warriors. That's like, I think there was the game against the Blazers that happened.
Yep.
And it was like, okay, that's the Warriors. But then I see games like tonight. I'm just like, I know the Thunder are a tough, weird team. To like young teams are like that are weird to play against because they're never gonna stop attacking you. They're never gonna, even when you're down, you're just gonna keep going. And the Thunder is the type of team that they will have like a random high draft pick that you don't even know they have on the team come off the bench and score like 8 points or something like that. It's I need to, if I pull up the set, because I think it happened tonight. I was just like, oh, he's on the team.
I think missing Wiggins is a big deal. I think you're right about that. Defensively, you've been saying this all year too. I mean, I talked about the offensive end. Defensively, they haven't really been the same either. So for me, I don't know what it is on the road, man. I think it's one of those things that it's psychological, maybe just a coincidence, but it is something where I think about where, when the playoffs come, like, am I really going to pick a team to win the championship that has been 7-25 on the road? Like that's on par with like the Spurs and the Rockets and the Pistons. Like I'm not kidding. Like that's the same type of road record those teams have.
But then it's like, but then you're like, it's the Warriors though, and that's the, but it's like though you can say that, but those teams don't have Curry. Those teams don't have Clay. Those teams don't have Draymond.
I know.
Like,
I'm just saying
that's the battle we like.
Especially because you're not getting a 1 seed. You're not getting home court advantage throughout the playoffs. Like you're going to be a 5, 6, 4 seed, whatever it is. You're going to have to go on the road. You're going to have to win a game and defend your home court at the same time. I don't know.
If they're a 6 seed, right, and they first game against the road, and then all of a sudden they just put up like a 50-point first quarter, which is like they're more than capable of doing.
Yeah.
Because they have those type of players. They have two offensive players who are basically capable of dropping like 30 points in a quarter without dribbling the ball.
Yeah.
That's like,
And Poole can go off too. Like that's
and
the crazy thing.
Poole can go off. I didn't
And
include
Wiggins,
Poole. I
Wiggins
didn't
will give
include Poole. I didn't
yeah,
include Poole
Wiggins
because
can give you 30.
Poole got danced. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Wiggins can give you 30.
Like it's
Yeah, so
yeah,
it's like,
it's hard, man. It's really confusing. Listen, put it this way: if I'm picking the Warriors, it's 100% trust, and that they are who I thought they were. That they are the same person who I've always known them to be. They
that you
haven't
remember them.
changed.
You
They're
still
just
have the
going
same
through.
feelings you have for them since
They're just
back
going
in the
through a
day.
lot right now, and when
That
push
sounds
comes to shove, they're
that
gonna
sounds
be okay.
toxic. That sounds
Yeah,
toxic.
it
And,
sounds hella toxic.
and speaking about the Thunder, who else was talking about? Usman Jang, who was the 11th pick, came off
Who?
the bench.
Oh,
Exactly.
the French
On the
dude?
Thunder. On the Thunder. Is he? I don't know what he is. He French?
Yeah, he's the one that got. I think he was drafted by the Knicks. He was traded to the Thunder, right? That guy.
Yeah. So yeah, he came off the bench and had like 11 points. I know he wasn't on the scouting report because I don't remember him playing the last game. So the Thunder are that weird team. They'd be like, hey, you're having a good game. Here's Lindsey Waters the third. Take that with you. It's like you're up by 15. Isaiah Joe, get in there, shoot like 4 threes. But and I don't want to make it sound like I'm making excuses for the Warriors because they need to figure this out because it's not sustainable if you're trying to be a championship team.
The Memphis Grizzlies losing to the Lakers, lost to the Clippers 2 days ago, following, I guess it's not suspension yet, but basically the indefinite leave of their point guard, Ja Morant, who now there's nothing that's come down. There's no timetable. Right now it's indefinite. There's rumors that it's going to be 50 games, and that goes back to when Gilbert Arenas flashed a gun in the locker room and got 50 games. I don't know what rumors to believe, so let's just say indefinite. But let's just say hypothetically they come back, like Ja's back for the playoffs. Do you think Memphis still has a problem?
If Ja's back and Steven Adams is back, Ja's still one of the best guards in the league. Steven Adams is still one of the strongest big men, probably the best offensive rebounder in the league, and also helps them with your offense and your defense. So if that was just a case of, oh, he's out and he's back, and also Steven Adams is back, the team would be fine. But the last episode we were going to record, we decided not to talk about what was going on with Ja because a news reporter came out about stuff that occurred over the summer with, I guess, in the mall about his mom, and then him showing up with a bunch of people, and then he punched a 17-year-old during a pickup game, and we just were like, oh, we're not going to talk about it because everybody else is going to get kind of getting beat down, and the timing of it was kind of weird because he was about to release a shoe with Nike, and also he just released a collaboration with like Powerade, I think. So the timing of that story coming out, even though there was no charges or anything from last year coming out now, we were like, okay, that's kind of weird, but okay, leave it alone. And then the live video of him in the club popped up, and it was just that was crazy. It was, first of all, it was very weird to watch. If he says he needs time to, I guess, find better ways to deal with stresses in his life, more power to him. I hope he figures it out and he's able to get back just to playing the sport and just being able to deal with things better. Yeah. Because you can't with the whole gun flashing thing, you can't have that because he's one of the faces of the league. He's one of the young faces in the league. He's one of the brands of the league. He's pushed heavily. He's one of the main reasons. He is, if not the main reason why Memphis is such a relevant team right now. Everybody kids want to see him, and you just can't have those type of visuals when you're that name now. Now, the last thing I'll say is this about the whole thing. I know me personally, when I was younger, and I'm about to date myself. I'm about to date both of us. No. Look, I'm about to date both. I'm about to I'm about to age the
Okay.
hell out of us.
All right.
But I know when I was younger, right? When I was dealing with personal things or whatever it was, right? I might have not chosen the best vices to deal with
Right.
that, right? And maybe I still don't. Who knows? That's me. But
We're human, bro. I mean,
we're
we all
human.
make
Yeah,
mistakes.
we're,
Go ahead.
we're make mistakes. The difference, and I've said this. I've had conversations with a lot of our mutual friends about this a lot of times. I thank God, and a lot of I thank whoever a lot every day that social media wasn't as prevalent back then as it is now because of all the BS I know personally I was getting into.
Yeah.
All the crazy things, like even just college and we went to a small little college in Jersey, a small private college in Jersey, whatever. The the crazy things that happened during my times there, where nobody was like, "Yo, let's pull out a phone and put this on the internet," which lives which lives forever, right? Because it
They're
wasn't
just stories that we tell. They're
we
fables that we tell.
yeah, exactly, the fables that we
Yeah.
tell. Where it's just like, "Oh, remember," and we just reflect on them. But now, because a lot of these kids are just they grow up with social media, so everything without them realizing it is they document everything
Yeah.
and they record and document everything. I'm not making excuses for Ja or whatever it is, but
It's easier to get in trouble now. I think that's what you're trying to say.
yeah, it's so easy. It's so easy.
Yeah.
And if it wasn't him recording it, somebody else would have had a phone on him and a camera on him. It's like, yo, look, there's Ja in the club and he's like
Right.
it's so easy. And now a lot of these kids don't have the chance to make mistakes and then learn from it without it getting blown up. And that's I'm not making excuses for him. I'm not, because this is stuff he has to he has to know better in terms of this, especially during the time where like, hey, people are talking about you pulling out a gun, da da da. There's like investigations going on. The very, very last thing we need to see is you waving a gun on a
Right.
live, an Instagram live with how many people watching.
Right.
But because of social media, I say there's a lot of these athletes, a lot of these kids don't really have a chance because it's all on Front Street.
Yeah, no, I understand that, man. And it's a different world with different rules. And with the different world and different rules that we live in there comes new sets of responsibilities, but there also comes new sets of accountability. And I think
Well
just
said.
because there's new sets of rules and, you know, new restrictions, and I mean, there's things where it's like, I'm not going to out anybody, but we have things on video too, or we have things that we've said, like as far as like Facebook status messages or aim away messages or things of that nature that if I were to say today, or if you would have said today, or if we have released it today, forget it. Like to make your point, I mean, there's a video that doesn't exist anymore that we'll talk about it after. Where I'm getting yelled at for seeing a certain type of movie. I'll just leave that there. And some of the language in that movie
Hey, as
would get
great,
one of our
great,
friends dragged through the mud.
great. That's a great example. That's actually a great example.
I'll leave it
I
at that.
Yeah,
But what
that
what what I will say is that, yes, it's new times, but you still have to adapt to the times, and you still have to be able to take accountability. For instance, this whole term of cancel culture, right? People want to complain about cancel culture. It's really not cancel culture. It's just taking accountability for things that you may say and may do. Yeah, if you say racist things, people are going to be upset about it. There are going to be consequences. Yeah, if you say sexist things, people are going to be upset about it. There are going to be consequences. And waving it around a gun in a strip club while possibly intoxicated is not a good look from how you put it.
yep.
I don't care if you are a legal gun owner. I don't care if you have a license to carry. That doesn't matter. And all the people who want to tout the Second Amendment with this kind of frustrate me the most, because the people who tout the Second Amendment are the first people who say, well, you shouldn't be restricting laws. You shouldn't be putting laws on responsible gun owners. It's the irresponsible gun owners who make us look bad. But the first people to come to Ja's defense are the people who are for the Second Amendment, defending someone who, at the moment, is being an irresponsible gun owner. Just because you have the right to own a gun doesn't mean that you can go into a strip club, intoxicate it, and wave it around. It's not. It's you have to be responsible with these type of things. If you want certain laws in this country, if you want certain rights, you have to abide by certain rules that we put in place for these rights. And Ja didn't do that. Now, also to your point, he is the face of the franchise and he's one of the faces of the NBA. And that comes with a lot of responsibility that, maybe somebody like Kenny Lofton Jr., who's in and out of the G League back and forth on the team, doesn't have. And
Why,
that
why,
might
is,
not.
why is Kenny catching a shot? why is Kenny catching a shot?
I like Kenny, bro.
I like
But
Kenny,
realize,
bro. Like
right?
what?
You have to know that eyes and ears are always going to be on you and hearing things that you say. For you to put more eyes and ears, he consciously did that himself, which is
You're held to a different standard. You're held to
you're held to a different standard, and it may be fair, it may not be fair, but you got to be aware of it, and you got to know at that age. Listen, I'm a different person now than I was when I was 20, 24. But even at that age, I knew what was acceptable and what wasn't acceptable. Waving a gun at a strip club while intoxicated as a face of a franchise and one of the faces of the league, that is a no-brainer, unacceptable thing to do. And I think it takes someone who is either A, not in the right state of mind, or B, who thinks they're above certain rules to do that. And I think Ja, for a little bit, with his actions with the mall incident and the teenager incident and this incident, has had this feeling of being a little bit invincible. I'm not saying he's a bad guy. I'm not saying he's child. I'm not saying any of these type of things. To your point, he's not allowed to mess up in the way that we were allowed to mess up because everything's on camera and whatnot. But I do think he has to, at some point, start taking accountability and start looking himself in the mirror and start saying to himself, I can't do this anymore. Like, I am Ja Morant. I am one of the best point guards in the league. I am one of the faces of the NBA. With great power comes great responsibility. I know that's corny, but it is true. And you can't make excuses. You just can't. You can't make excuses for that type of behavior.
I also think it seems like, and I hope it seems like he's taking the right steps.
Yeah.
In the right direction. And I'm weird to say, but I'm happy like maybe this happened now and not later on in his career. So maybe
I'm just happy no one got hurt, if I'm being
exactly.
honest.
Yeah,
He got
but
punted himself. And I don't even say it as a joke.
joke. Yeah. I
And
got you.
For those who are not familiar, I'm a New York Giants fan, and for those of you who don't follow the NFL, Plaxico Burress was a wide receiver for the Giants back in 2008, where the Giants were the best team in the NFL. Looks like they were going back to the Super Bowl. Had a gun in a club, shot himself in the foot. Literally shot himself in the foot. Caught a couple years in jail. Also a foot injury. Giants season goes down the tubes, and his career goes down the tubes for no reason in a state where you can't even carry, nonetheless, which is why he went to jail.
If this is what it takes for him to fix it and just get on the right path and just get back to playing ball and living his life the right way, then so be it. So one thing that I didn't like when this happened was I see people online were like blaming his father.
Bro, the dude's at every game in his life. He's a positive influence in his life.
Yeah, we're like, oh well, he's
you don't know their one-on-one relationship, but from the outside looking in, I mean, come on, how can you? At some point, you have to put the blame on the person who's legally an adult here. Seriously,
it was like, people were like, oh well, if his father didn't spend time trying to be his friend, I'm like, please stop. Like, when it comes down to it, he made a mistake.
Right.
And if he's addressing it now, and he's taking care of it, hopefully he gets the support and the help he needs. And that lends to him hopefully getting back in the league and playing the sport. I'm just hoping it doesn't escalate to anything else than it is right now. Like you said, there was rumors about like 50 games and all this stuff that's happening. And you mentioned Gilbert Arenas. People, it's crazy that there are people who just view Gilbert Arenas as, oh, he was the guy with the gun in the locker room and the guy that just like says stuff like online on his different like platforms or whatever. Gilbert Arenas was one of the best guards in the league.
Yeah,
like hands down one of the best guards in the league. Like Agent Zero was a thing. Hibachi was a thing. Like he was hitting game winners and turning around before it went in. Like he was one of the best guards in the league, hands down. And a lot of people just only view him as the guy that brought guns to the locker room, which was like very unfortunate for his career. It derailed his career. it derailed his career. So I'm really hoping this is not the case for Ja, and he's able to take care of this so he can just get back to playing ball. Now, back to rewinding back to Memphis. Memphis was at a certain point they were like fighting for the number 1 seed, a top
Yeah.
contender in the West. And now it's like I remember in the span of a day they lost Ja. Brandon Clark is out for the rest of the season with the Achilles tear.
Yep.
And Dylan Brooks was out for the 1-game suspension because of the technical. And he
Yeah.
came back this game, which was he had a Dylan Brooks game, which
We had a game.
yeah, he was there. he played. He played. I was just like you look at the team now, it's like even though they're a deep team, they need your stars. They need Ja back. They need Steven Adams back, just so they can hopefully get back on track and we can just talk about just basketball. I just feel like a lot of the conversation has been when it comes to NBA, a lot of the conversation online sometimes it's not basketball related anymore. It's not. It's just other shit at all. It's crazy. I feel like some people don't even like basketball.
Yeah, it's we start to it gets like political, and for the people who are like, it's not everything's politics, man. I don't want to get into it, but like that's what it feels like. Yeah, I would like to start talking basketball again, but I don't think we're gonna get there until the playoffs start.
Facts.
If I'm gonna be honest with you, I think especially with the NBA, late February, March, like it's kind of just the type of year where it's slow news, and we've unfortunately hit that part of the season where things like this are gonna take hold of the headlines. For me, the Grizzlies, I think their season's over.
Damn.
I'll be completely honest with you. When Ja comes back, the vibes. I'm so big on vibes and cohesion and chemistry when it comes to basketball. I really do think you have to have a team that likes each other. I think you have to have a team that's in sync, on the same page, can go through like turbulence and adversity together. And I'm not saying the Grizzlies can't do that in the future. I just think there's too much on the plate right now for a season, no matter how open the West is. Now, I could be wrong. I mean, this could bring them closer together. Like Ja could come back and there could be a huge team meeting and they could all hug it out, and all of a sudden they're closer than they've ever been, and they go forward from there. But I don't know how that happens, considering that I haven't seen the maturity from Ja to actually be that leader outside of the locker room based off the actions he's been doing to lead such a short turnaround. I think that he needs an off season. I think that maybe a little bit of a roster shakeup, maybe just a little bit of a breath of fresh air where they can kind of just relax and move on from it is what they need. I don't think this season's the season. Now, I don't know how far they go. I'm not saying they're gonna be out in the first round, but as far as contenders, I can't see it happening.
I think is if Ja comes back and if Steven Adams comes back, it's, to me, I've said this multiple times with the West, actually with the West and the East, it's matchups. It's just matchups related. It depends on who they face. It's matchups related. There are teams I can see them beating. There are teams I can see them losing to, but it's matchups related. So I'm not on that same page. I feel like if Ja is able to come back, I feel like maybe they'll rally around each other because it's still a relatively young team.
Okay.
That also being one of the main issues why there seems to be some
they're going through
you're going through, right? So, but it's still a relatively young team where it's like they all seem to really like each other, like the same things, get along. So I think maybe they'll figure it out. So hopefully they figure it out.
All right. Well, that's going to do it for today's show. Thanks for joining us. I know it was a more non-eventful show than usual. There weren't the bells and whistles of polls and Twitters and dancing and all that good stuff. But no, it was nice. It was nice to touch base, Kwab. Good show. Good show. Listen, if you want to follow the Dime, you can on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube at the Dime NBA. All episodes are cast on the Balls Life Podcast Network. You can go on Apple, Spotify, and in your favorite podcast platform and listen to the Dime as well. If you're an audio listener, make sure you give it 5 stars, all that good stuff. We're going to try to do a show Thursday night, we said, right, Kwab? So Thursday night into Friday. Night. So look out for that Friday morning for another episode. But until then, thank you for listening. We'll see you in a couple days.